Welcome. This is Dr. Sheila Gallagher, one of the authors of the Problem-Based Learning Unit, A Final Appeal, the First Amendment and To Kill a Mockingbird. A Final Appeal is published by Royal Fireworks Press. The unit was developed and pilot tested in the Advanced Academics program in the Fairfax County Schools in Virginia, where my co-author, Dana Plowden, was a middle school teacher. Many other teachers participated in the development and pilot testing of this unit, especially social studies teacher Christopher Summers. In this presentation, I'll walk you through the unit. We'll take a look at some of the activities, assessments, and rubrics we've included in the unit, and also at some of the teacher supports that are provided so you can be successful teaching a final appeal, even if you're new to problem-based learning. The entire curriculum for a final appeal is comprised of 3 parts: a teacher manual, which contains lesson plans and support material, a student problem log, which has copies of lesson materials, activities, assessments, and rubrics, and a resource book with primary resource materials. The problem presented to students in a final appeal involves free speech, especially as it applies to teachers in public schools. As students investigate their problem, they learn about the First Amendment and nuances in its interpretation. They also learn about the importance of continuity to the American legal system through the use of precedent cases and the principle of stare decisis, as well as other legal constructs such as fighting words and matters of public concern. Because the case is centered on the use of To Kill a Mockingbird, there's a natural interdisciplinary connection too. A final appeal contains the 3 elements characteristic of problem-based learning. The unit starts with the presentation of an ill-structured problem. Students, as a group, view the problem through the eyes of a stakeholder, and teachers serve in the role of coach or facilitator. The ill-structured problem creates a scope and sequence for the entire unit. Because most ill-structured problems are based on real-world events, you can think of the ill-structured problem as the story of the unit. The problem will be ill-structured to your students, but it doesn't have to be ill-structured for you. A problem narrative is included in the unit to give you an advanced sense of how the story progresses. This narrative can serve as a curriculum guide if you feel the need. Otherwise, think of the narrative as a core outline that you can shape in order to respond to your students' questions and learning needs. The resource book also contains 2 court decisions in the case of Evans-Marshall versus the Board of Tip City. The first is an appeal. The second is the final decision. The Evans-Marshall court case was the inspiration for this unit, making these documents a valuable source of background information. You'll find that the real court case concerned a teacher who was fired for teaching several controversial books, including Heather Has Two Mommies, Fahrenheit 451, and Siddhartha. To Kill a Mockingbird was substituted in a final appeal for 2 reasons. First, it's one of the most frequently banned books in public schools, and second, To Kill a Mockingbird is required reading in the Fairfax County schools, bringing the unit into alignment with both social studies and language arts curriculum. Of course, other novels could be substituted as well. As students dig into the problem at the center of the unit, they move through different stages of problem solving, including problem engagement, inquiry and investigation, problem definition, problem resolution, and problem debriefing. The story evolves as students move from the beginning to the end of the unit. The opening scenario is the first chapter in the problem-based learning unit, and it introduces students to the problem. As you might expect, the opening scenario is carefully written to get students to ask questions that are directly related to the unit's learning objectives. The students receive a memo informing them that they are members of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. They've been selected as the judicial panel to review the case of Benson versus Aurora Independent School District. A brief summary of the case is included with the memo. In these documents, students find that a teacher, Tara Benson, claims that she was wrongfully fired for teaching To Kill a Mockingbird. Benson brings the school district to court, claiming that the attempt to suppress her use of To Kill a Mockingbird and her resulting termination was a violation of her First Amendment right to free speech. Benson lost the case in local court, and she's now appealing that decision. Students then complete the Learning Issues Board, listing the information they know and questions they need to answer in order to understand the situation better. Students then prioritize their questions, selecting the top 4 or 5 they need to answer first, and they create a plan of action to find answers for those top priority questions. Then they're ready for the next stage of the problem, inquiry and investigation. During inquiry and investigation, students search for the answers to the questions they've listed on the Learning Issues Board. In a final appeal, their research takes them in 2 directions, finding out more about the case and finding out more about what it means to be a judge. One of the first things students will learn is that, as appeals court judges, they cannot entertain new evidence for the case. They can, however, review existing evidence. They receive an evidentiary packet that comes along with the unit. In the packet, they find a variety of documents providing evidence for the case, including Benson's contract, her evaluations, memos between Benson and her principal, and minutes of the Aurora School District Board of Trustees meetings. The novice judges must sort through this information to find evidence relevant to the case. In the process, they also learn how to divide research responsibilities and organize data. Even though student judges can't request additional information about the case, they should want to learn more about the First Amendment and about how to be a good judge. In the teacher manual, you'll find several pages of internet resources, culled from among hundreds, to help students find answers to their questions. The new Common Core State Standards and problem-based learning both place an emphasis on learning effective research skills. A research notes page is included in the problem log so students can keep track of both the questions they're researching and the answers they find. Students are also prompted to follow proper MLA citation style so they are ready to cite evidence when they discuss the case and when they write their final decision. An effective PBL unit balances activity that is guided by the students' questions with lessons that provide them with skills and tools they need in order to solve their problem. In a final appeal, lessons embedded within the problem provide students with important background information that judges would have, instruct them in ways of analyzing information, and provide them with the frames of reference that are important to judicial decision-making. For example, students are introduced to the legal principle of stare decisis, or to stand by that which is decided. It is this principle that guides judges to make their decisions based on precedent cases. An invaluable resource for this lesson are brief video clips of Supreme Court Justices Sandra Day O'Connor and Stephen Breyer, made available by the Annenberg Classroom website, in which they discuss the conditions under which they would overturn a decision or break from precedent. Students also learn that conceptual reasoning is a crucial component of expert problem solving. Continuity is the central concept in a final appeal. Students are provided with a definition that helps them distinguish between continuity and stability. They are introduced to a visual graphic, a paperclip chain, to help them grasp the idea that continuity has more to do with incremental change than with lack of change. They also learn to think about the Constitution as a cornerstone of continuity that creates a stable society. The conversation about continuity occurs throughout the unit, but receives special focus in a couple of lessons like this one, where students create a chain of continuity by tracing a path of legal reasoning using precedent court cases. They first learned this skill by analyzing the chain of decisions that led from Plessy versus Ferguson to Brown versus Board of Education. They apply the skills again later with their own case. These are the generalizations about continuity that are threaded throughout the unit. Eventually, students understand the problem well enough that they are ready to create a specific problem definition. They are encouraged to think of problem definition as a combination of an issue or issues in need of correction and constraints that limit how they approach the issue. In this case, one of the key constraints is the principle of stare decisis, which requires that they follow existing precedent unless harm is being done and compelling social conditions suggest that a change is necessary. Having reached consensus on a clear problem definition, students are ready to consider different solutions. In a final appeal, problem resolution begins with another round of research, this time into the precedent cases that will guide their decision. Embedded instruction at this stage of the unit is designed to help students sort through what they've learned and extend their understanding. Students come to recognize that the insights they draw from information is dependent, in part, on how they organize that information. Eventually, they must make a decision. They do this as an entire class, and majority rules. They're then provided with a template to guide the process of writing their decision. The template gives you an opportunity to have the entire class working on a common decision by giving different groups different elements of the template to complete, including a minority report. While this culminating activity is written, you always have the option of having the students make an oral presentation of their decision as well. At this point, the problem itself is over, but there's one more stage to problem-based learning, one that, according to research, helps solidify content knowledge as well as students' awareness of the problem-solving process. A perfect resource for problem debriefing in a final appeal is the court case that was the basis for the problem. Students can read both the original decision and the critique of the decision published in the Harvard Law Review. Exercises like this help students see that few real-world problems have straightforward right or wrong answers. While the ill-structured problem provides a general storyline for the unit, it's always possible to add different chapters or add new dimensions to the problem through kickers or twists in the plot. The kicker we've included makes the novel To Kill a Mockingbird more integral to the unit and also introduces students to the legal principles of fighting words and matters of public concern. Students receive a new letter from the Chief Justice with a missing piece of evidence, a petition from parents asking the Aurora School District Board of Trustees to ban To Kill a Mockingbird. They're asked to consider whether or not the content of To Kill a Mockingbird is relevant to the case. The parents claim that the racially charged language in the book constitute fighting words. Students may also want to determine whether the content of To Kill a Mockingbird represents matters of public concern, because matters of public concern are often protected as free speech. A variety of assessments are included in the unit. Most assessments are also compiled in the student problem log. Special attention was paid to incorporate exercises that were relevant to the problem and yet still met new Common Core requirements. For instance, they're asked to reflect on what it's like to be a judge by responding to the writings of an actual justice. Rubrics set expectations for research and for oral presentation. And students engage in critical thinking throughout the unit. A final appeal also includes many different kinds of scaffolds and supports for you. I've already mentioned the problem narrative and the two court decisions that inspired this unit. They can both help you understand the story that frames a final appeal. The teacher manual also has content background, which describes the legal principles relevant to the case. An alignment chart shows where different skills and ideas appear in the unit. Sample schedules will help you plan your time. In the back of the manual, you'll find 3 how-to guides that will help improve your skills as a PBL coach. Also in the back of the manual are a number of charts demonstrating the alignment of a final appeal with national standards for civics and government, and also Common Core state standards in both middle and high school, history and social studies, and also in English Language Arts. If you're interested in teaching a final appeal, you should order the teacher manual, the student problem log, and the resource book. Another helpful book would be Problem-Based Learning in the Classroom, which is a practical guide on how to teach PBL units. If you're interested in widespread use of this or other PBL units in your school or district, hands-on workshops are available through Royal Fireworks Press. I hope you enjoyed this presentation about a final appeal. To see slideshows describing other PBL units in this series, please visit the Royal Fireworks Press website at www.rfwp.com. Thanks for listening.